Hello and welcome to a slightly later than planned, with our apologies, Under The Brolly podcast, featuring the wonderful, wonderful people from MyUmbrella and also our wonderful special guest, Zayna. Where do we start?
The very beginning.
The very beginning, absolutely. Forgive us, listeners, because we currently, due to an overexcited cat and everything else that's gone on this weekend, have had no sleep for 48 hours. This is purely running on cup of soups and coffee, so anything can happen in the next hour. Brace yourselves. So, welcome to Under The Brolly Live, the MyUmbrella podcast, which aims to educate and inform the wider community about the less than LGBT plus sexualities, genders, identities, kinks, and fetishes. As of course, MyUmbrella is a volunteer-led project led by Reading Pride, based in Reading, Berkshire, for the lesser-known LGBT plus identities. And MyUmbrella itself were launched by Reading Pride in 2015, and our aim is to educate, support, and socialise. And we also aim to signpost those who require the relevant support and advice from other organisations to the relevant service. At the same time, as we're still continuing to go through these ridiculously unprecedented times, we at MyUmbrella LGBT+, along with a number of all of our different prides and the other events that we also attend, feel now that it's even more important than ever to stay connected and entertained, to maintain a healthy mind, and also. And sadly, with nearly all Pride events and other events related to Pride either cancelled or looking as though they will be postponed in the not-so-distant future before the end of 2020, we know that many of you will feel that a part of your social life, certainly from where we've been out and about in all the Pride events as well, has actually been affected this summer. So while we might not be able to get to all of these different Pride events, what we can do is at least the next best thing virtually. So although we can't get you to come to our stalls, get very careful how I say our stalls, but there we go, I've said it again. Like normal, we've decided to bring you the next best thing, which is that we are coming to you through the wonderful power of the internet, a bit wobbly at the moment, so bear with us. So our hardworking volunteers that you can see in all the window, including our special guest, live streaming our Under The Brolly Live podcast to discuss LGBT plus identities and issues, share our experiences, and of course, interact with all you lovely, lovely people. Of course, there isn't just a one-way us talking at you podcast. We would love you to get involved as well. We have some wonderful ways of getting in touch. We have our live mailbox, so you can actually get us on info, that's INFO, info at myumbrella.org.uk. Please start your email with Under The Brolly in the subject line so we know which one we have to look at and which ones we have to not ignore, but we can look at those afterwards. You can also tweet us. Okay, we're on Twitter. Find us on the Twitter platform. Please start your tweet with hashtag Under The Brolly. Or you can also drop your comments into our live stream. Now, as I understand it, we are live streaming on YouTube and we are also live streaming on Facebook. So please feel free to chuck a comment in there and we'll do our very, very, very best to answer any questions that you've got or put any questions that you have got to our wonderful special guest. Of course, you can find us on all other social media platforms as well, and you can just type in the words Under The Brolly or MyUmbrella into your social media platform and hopefully we should pop up. Anyway, enough of me rabbiting on. Let's crack on with introducing you to our wonderful team and our wonderful special guest. So a quick run through of who is in each window. Could we have a quick wave from Chrissy, please? Chrissy, one of our wonderful founding members there as well. We'll have another quick wave from Kerry as well. I can't actually see Kerry, so I'm hoping that she's waving. Someone tell me that Kerry's waving frantically and excitably. Or not, that's fine too. We don't mind. We won't take it personally at all. I'll just go back into the corner and cry in a bit, and we'll talk about that in the meeting afterwards. Can we also have a wonderful wave from myself and my wonderful husband, Tom? So I'm Steve, and this is Tom.
Hi.
We are based in beautiful and not so sunny Western-super-Mare. We have Mike currently sitting behind the scenes, our wonderful producer in the clouds. He's talking to us so we can hear him, but you can't hear him either.
Gary was giving a good wave.
Oh,
it just brought up on our screen here.
Excellent as well. And then lastly, of course, we would also like to say a huge thank you and a massive hello to today's special guest, Zayna. Zayna, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself to all of our listeners, please?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks ever so much for joining us this evening. My name's Zayna Ratty, and I am the chair of Oxford Pride, and I'm also a specialist LGBTQIA+ hypnopsychotherapist and corporate trainer.
Excellent. Quite a lot to go through there, actually, because we know yourself. Yeah, we know yourself from Oxford, but there's so much other stuff that we love you for as well, which is amazing. Zayna's also been involved in some of our other panels and has very kindly, and I have no idea, you must be absolutely mad, that you keep coming back and you keep wanting to be a guest for us, which is amazing because I'll be honest, we've worked together for ages and it's got to that point where we're thinking, oh, look, we're still here and we're still great, and which is lovely. So thank you to keep coming back to us and being on the panels and just being absolutely wonderful at all the things you do. Would you also be kind enough just to let any of our listeners know how they can either contact you or your Oxford Prize so that they can either add you on Facebook and that way they can also get involved in some of the wonderful things that you're doing?
Absolutely. So we recently had our AGM and we are beginning to plan for next year, a date of which will be released very shortly. Fingers crossed, touch wood, all the usual superstitious things. And you can catch up with us on Oxford Pride, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the usuals, along with www.oxfordpride.uk.
Woo! Fabulous. Excellent. So, without further ado, we're going to crack on with a fantastic hint at what we might be talking about today. And Zayna has very kindly put together quite possibly the loudest backdrop ever. We've only got a tiny little roller banner, but you've completely done us to shame on that. And it looks absolutely fantastic. Now, what I'm actually seeing in this idea, it says by day. Am I right in thinking there's something else going along behind, or is it by Visibility Day, I think is what we're looking at?
So it says by Visibility Day. So what we did a couple of years ago with Oxford Pride is obviously this is our ox, and we changed up the colours of our ox. So I have the graphic on my computer. I was like, perfect for tonight.
It's absolutely fantastic. It looks amazing. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about Bi Visibility Day and also Bisexual Awareness Week as well, if I remember rightly. So we have a lot to cover as well in today's episode. What we will quickly do, though, is zip over to the chat room and just say a quick hello to some of the lovely people that are going to be joining us today, because I'm sure there's going to be quite a lot of conversation, certainly around bisexuality. I know that it's one of those wonderful areas which I absolutely, completely love and adore. As many years ago, before I discovered and identified as asexual, I used to identify as being bisexual. So, without further ado, Tom, who do we have watching at the moment on Face? Are we on Face?
On the Book of Face.
On the Book of Face.
We have now got, it's disappeared. Hang on.
What, all of Facebook?
I think it was 11 people.
Wow.
So we've got good old Jackson.
We do love Jackson.
We've also
friend
got
of the show.
Perennial fan Kevin as well.
Who?
Kevin.
Oh, Kevin, sorry.
Kevin.
I just don't know that word. What was
Perennial.
That word? Right.
Type of flower.
Right.
We've also got Charlotte and Chrissy as well.
Excellent.
50. We've got to 50. So if you are watching,
amazing.
Give us a wave, give us a little comment. So I'm watching Windows. Just leave us a little comment and say who you are, where you are. We love hearing from you. And also hello to everyone who's watching this in the future.
Absolutely, yeah, very much so as well. Who's catching up on YouTube? Chrissy, are you catching up on those that are watching us on YouTube?
There is 4 of us watching on YouTube, but as of yet, no one has spoken and said hello.
Oh, come on, let's get some comments out there. Come on, spread the love. This is a fantastic subject to talk about. So please get any questions in, any wonderful, what's the word I'm looking mysterious myths about what we've heard of bisexuality, because I know there's plenty of them out there.
Mysterious myths or mythical mysteries.
Exactly,
Yeah.
well, and those as well. So please, 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 if you do want to ask a question, get involved. Use your platforms, use email, use the chat rooms. We would absolutely love to interact with you as well. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand the reins across to Zayna, of course, very kindly. Would you be kind enough to tell the audience about what Bi Visibility Day is all about, and also Bi Awareness Week?
Yeah, so Bi Visibility Day was started by 3 people called Wendy, Michael, and Gigi in 1999. So it's been going a little while now, and that was to really increase the visibility of the bi plus type identity. Quite often, when we're talking about bisexuality, there are now other terms that come under an umbrella term. So that's why I say bi plus as a quick way of saying bisexuality, pansexuality, people, and also people who are romantic. If we're looking at the different types of attractions, if you're biromantic, for instance, then so this day was started. We started to have an event in Oxford, and obviously we didn't this year, but we were really lucky for the town hall started to fly the flag, which was amazing. So this is about, the day is about, and the week is about increasing the visibility and representation of what could actually be the largest sector of the LGBTQIA plus society, but are quite often minimised. We were talking about myths, and I'm sure we'll go into some of those later, because there are plenty of them around. And I'm hoping that, if somebody out there has heard a myth, please do, write down, oh, I heard this, because it would be great to discuss it. So yeah, possibly the largest group, possibly one of the ones that are erased or minimised the most. And so therefore we have our own week and our own day to celebrate who we are.
Excellent, excellent. This is something that's really, really close to my heart, actually, very much so, because I do absolutely share your passion in this, that the one thing that we are here to do is to raise awareness and push out there the education element of what different identities, gender, sexualities, attractions. And I'm really pleased that you mentioned about the fact that there's also the romantic element to bisexuality, biromanticism, etc. And it is really important that people don't just disappear, and something that's as personal to an individual, such as a sexuality, a gender, or identity, is something that is so significant to them that it shouldn't be something that's erased. And it is something that is very, very close to who they are as an individual. So without further ado, it'd be really interesting to kind of delve into some of the common misconceptions. That's probably the politest way that I can put it. Because I certainly, I know myself and the rest of the MyUmbrella team have had numerous conversations with people at our stalls when we talk about what bisexuality is. We have people come up to the stall and they talk about, well, I've got a son, I've got a daughter, I had a son, and now they identify as non-binary, and now they feel as if they're attracted to men or women or all genders as well. And it all tends to start getting a bit overwhelming, because I think what then happens is people almost fall all over themselves to try and kind of get to grips with how to understand it, and at the same time kind of lose the visibility of actually how important it is to understand the awareness of it and actually the visibility of who these people are as individuals. So should we just go through some of the common myths and misconceptions of as a bisexual or biromantic individual, how that essentially is identified, or how people identify with themselves in the community?
Well, I guess I've got one that actually somebody said to me, funnily enough. So this is from personal experience. Was you haven't quite made your mind up yet?
Whoa! Wow, that is one I've definitely heard that one before. I'm gonna counteract that one as well, because the the one that we hear, and I know that Chrissy and Kerry will certainly throw this one as well because we certainly heard it before. So you've had that you haven't quite made your mind up, which is it's incredibly personal to somebody. But then there's also the other side where people will turn around and say, "Well, you're just greedy, aren't you? You just want everything. You basically want to have your cake and eat it." And we've genuinely had that, and that kind of also kind of gets blurred across with pansexuality as well at the same time. And that again is something that's so personal, so significant, and can be quite cutting to some individuals because that's who they are. That's an individual. That's someone that doesn't know any better, basically saying that they think they do know better. Clearly, they don't.
I've also got bisexuals are just confused. Arguably, one of the truths bisexuals are confused over how people don't understand their sexuality.
That's a good one as well. That is a good one. Thank you, Chrissy. Excellent. Okay. Anything for Kerry at all? What have you heard? Any one of the things that we've heard on our travels?
Pretty much just mirroring what Zayna and Christina have said. Just, oh, you're greedy. Oh, you haven't made your mind up. So are you? One that does make me really boggles my brain is. So does that mean you're gay or does that mean you're straight? Like, no.
Oh, that is a good one actually. And again, that's I think that's when it starts to come into, and I know that Zayna mentioned it earlier about the erasure aspect, because then you start to find that people start to be very, very nitpicky about, hang on a second, do you belong or do you fit within the LGBTQIA plus community, the umbrella? If essentially there's almost like some internalized biphobia going on there within the community itself, which itself is totally unacceptable, because the one thing that the community is all about, and we continue to strive and fight about being about, is about coexistence and acceptance and everyone getting on together and everyone accepting each other and get on with it kind of thing. But then to have that is quite damaging, really, as well. What about yourself? What have you heard?
Well, I actually was in a relationship with a bisexual man for 8 or 9 months, 20 years ago, and I got to be honest, I was 20, 21 at the time, and before that, I hadn't really experienced, really got to know anyone who was bisexual, and that really changed my understanding of it. And one thing I got from that relationship, which I thought was interesting, was that he was very against the idea of putting percentages to like 60-40, 70-30, whatever, because his argument was that you could see a dozen particularly attractive or nice people in a row who would be the same gender, and then you see one who wasn't. You'd have the same feelings potentially towards those people. But for you, it wasn't about 60% of the time or 60% of people. It's just whoever comes into your life. There's a possibility that they might be part of your. What I mean? So putting it into numbers didn't make sense to them, and they were getting quite frustrated by it because it felt like they should be justifying whether or not they are more straight or gay. And it's like, well, it just depends who it is. Yeah. But I like both.
Yeah. That's actually quite interesting. I mean, certainly from my angle, I identified as bisexual when I was discovering my sexuality going through school and college. And I came out as bisexual when I was 14 in a Roman Catholic school. So that's definitely not for now, but we'll read into that bit definitely in a future show. And what was very interesting is, as Tom's already said, I was almost asked to justify what percentage of me was kind of bisexual, what percentage was straight, what percentage was gay. But then actually when I found myself out on the scene, I was asked the same question, even when I was in essentially an LGBT plus venue, where it kind of gave people an indication of how likely they were to be able to take me home. Basically, how gay am I, or how straight am I? Is there any chance, kind of thing? And that itself was actually quite difficult to comprehend, because I was still coming to terms with who I was at the time. And to kind of then throw that into the mix, I was just quite happy saying, do you know what? I quite like men and I quite like women, and that's all you need to know. That's how I'm attracted to people. And I don't think anyone should be having to justify their percentage or ratio or whatever. At the end of the day, if you identify as something and you can be confident and you are confident about that, then go with it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do we have much in the chat room at all? Do we have any questions or anything coming up?
We have a few bits and bobs.
Go on.
Yes, we do actually. Right.
Wow, go on.
Someone from MyUmbrella has put Hakuna Matata, which I'm guessing is Kerry.
Kerry.
So Jackson said, not such a fun story, but at college, someone told their friends that he was bi. They just harshly said, why don't you just choose? That hurt to hear, and that's why we need these days. Yes, absolutely. It's surprising how, I mean, I know obviously we're encouraging diversity and inclusion and the society is progressing, but we're saying today, we did an event and there was kind of assumption that if you're of an older generation that you would be against certain things, but actually there are quite a few young people who still haven't quite got it. So Kevin says, I am bi polysexual male, married to a lady, had kids, and found it a struggle to find a happy medium when bringing someone without judgment in a dynamic lifestyle with the BDSM community in general. So that's another element to it.
Yeah, very much.
And then Jackson also says, and so I think this is their partner, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, so their partner said that you've never done it with a guy, so how do you know? And his family bashed them. Annoyingly came out as bi after I came out as trans, so they blamed me. Yeah, that's another thing. Is that sort of like, because someone else has done it, therefore there's the assumption that you would feel either influenced or whatever, and it's actually maybe you've got the confidence because they've helped you come to that.
Oh, absolutely. I know that we've certainly had people come to our stall after an event, and certainly they've done kind of using some of the resources that we've got and speaking to that confidence to almost identify. So actually, I'm really, really comfortable saying that I'm this, and I want to be this, and I want people to know that this is who I am. Just going back to some of those comments in the chat room, Zayna, I don't know if you've got the chat room up at all. Do you want us to go over any of those at all, or is there anything you want to respond to on that? Because I think there's some really poignant points that are actually being made there.
Absolutely. I suppose one of the things that I was thinking of raising was around relationships, and that if you then get into a relationship with somebody who identifies as a gender other than your own, you are therefore, you're not bi anymore, you're obviously heterosexual. And which is kind of a common misconception that I myself get. And you know, a bi plus identity is a relatively stable identity. You are, and in fact, for Bi Day of Visibility, the only thing that I wrote on top of a Stonewall post was #StillBi, just to kind of remind people that, okay, I may be married to somebody who identifies as male, but that means I'm no less bi than if I were with somebody who doesn't identify as male. And yeah, you know, when we're thinking of identities, and we then can split that off into attraction, and also behavior. So, you know, attraction is basically who you're attracted to. Behavior is your activity within that. And then your identity is that self-concept. And the self-concept is based on all of the above and a social identity. So, you know, you then have, so I've just seen a question actually. Bi is, according to Bi Pride UK, is attraction beyond gender, whereas pansexuality can kind of be said to be without gender. They used to be different terminologies and interpretations, and those are changing all the time, obviously. But yeah, it's really difficult. It's really difficult to know that you are bi plus, and then somebody comes along and goes, well, how do you know? Because you haven't slept with whoever. And it shouldn't be a case that you have to produce X people that you have known or been intimate with to go, this is the proof that I'm bi plus. Like, you need some kind of ID card or even loyalty card where you get stamps according to who you've been with. That's actually good. You could just go in somewhere and just go, yeah, bi plus.
I think, I'll be honest, I think back in the day when it used to be sort of, oh, you've dropped your gay card or you've dropped your bi card. I mean, I mean, imagine if we got points on it. I mean, we'd save a fortune. It'd be brilliant. Wow.
It's almost like people are expecting you to get a flip chart out and say, well, this is this, this is this, this is this, and this is that.
Well, if it ever comes to our talks, and we pretty much do.
Oh,
do
yeah,
that.
we do that. Yeah, we have a few people. I think, and thank you so much for answering that comment as well that was put forward on the Reading Pride page there. We've got people watching from Reading Pride, which is so the difference between bisexuality and pansexual. And I think it's quite an interesting one, that, because I'm going to say I don't like using the term back in the day, but back in the day, when I identified as being bisexual, what was essentially now identified as being pansexual, I don't think, although yes, it existed, and we all know that a whole range of these fantastic sexualities have existed for absolutely forever, it just wasn't something that was at the forefront of people's minds because no one talked about it, no one found out about it, no one was able to understand it more. And I think it is really important that there is a difference between bisexuality, pansexuality, and the same way that you've got the romantic attraction element of that as well, and essentially everything else that comes with that. And I think it is really important for people to understand that there is no one sexuality that's more important than anything else. And also at the same time, the fact that, and I know it's certainly something that only in the last year or so that I've actually come to realise that being the fact that bisexuality itself is quite possibly one of the largest collective communities, for want of a better phrase. I think you put it into better words than I ever could, Zayna. As far as the LGBTQIA plus community is concerned, because it is absolutely huge, because all the other spectrums that fall underneath that all just complement each other, and it just turns into this absolutely wonderful community. And I know that whenever we go to a lot of our events, we kind of almost make a beeline to actually see what Bi Pride are up to. I think the last time we actually saw them was at Student Pride, and they had a huge, huge crowd around them. It was literally trying to fight your way to try and get to them, which was brilliant to see, because at other events previously, certainly years gone by, it was almost as if that they were completely forgotten about, and it is quite kind of demoralising, really, especially for somebody that sees the bi flag and looks at it and goes, do you know what? There's hope. That's how I identify, and I want to kind of be more involved in that, and I see that. How do you feel about that? Sorry, that was directed at you, Zayna. Sorry, I might not have made that clear. Sorry.
Well, just like, I don't want to be like just doing all the talking, everybody going, Zayna, shut up.
Never, we would never ever say that.
You can put it really simply. Bi Pride UK wouldn't exist if there wasn't discrimination and marginalisation in mainstream prides.
Wow. Yeah. Sorry, Zayna. Yeah, go on.
I'm just watching your faces going, do it? and it's very similar when you think about Black Pride UK, Trans Pride. You know, people have had to feel that they've needed to split off and create their own prides for total inclusion. And you know, even things we are denied, and I know there's a lot in the news at the moment about education, and even about education to know around the types of attraction. So you can have a pan-romantic or a pansexuality type sexual attraction or physical attraction or aesthetic attraction, and there's also emotional attraction, obviously. So you can. The possibilities are endless. And when I have people that go, well, there's so much terminology, there's so many different words, I don't know them all. I always say, I don't expect you to know them all. They're evolving all the time. I work and train in this area, and the, PowerPoints that I made 3 years ago are now out of date because the terminology has moved on so fast.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. Sorry, Zayna, go on.
I think, it doesn't matter, really. There are so many terminologies that you're not going to know them all. But the bi word, pardon the pun, should be... I didn't even mean that. The bi word should be inclusion and openness and honesty and treating people with the respect of them just being them.
Absolutely. I think you've touched on something that, I mean, you've known the MyUmbrella team and us for so many years, and preaching to the converted already. I mean, we go through that painful activity every single year when we update our guide to LGBT plus, and we get really excited by, oh look, it's another page, and again, how is there another page? And you think, oh, we discovered this, and then all of a sudden we go back through the flags and go, well, hang on, well, this flag is now covered under this, and then this one, and it does. I mean, Tom's our research and development officer, and although we get very excited each year that the guide gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then something else falls under another category, etc., it is exactly that. Things are evolving, and it's really important for people to understand that as awareness and visibility of sexualities and genders and identities, and I'm going to throw it out there as well, because we are a kink-inclusive charity as well, we are kinks and fetishes as well. It does mean that the umbrella itself is getting bigger, which is brilliant. But also at the same time, it does mean that everybody needs to kind of move along with it as well. It's not something that's static. It is something that's always moving. It is getting bigger. And we do need to keep ourselves abreast of all the information on there. Now, I'm sorry that I keep going on. I know that you had a question, Tom.
It's just a question for Zayna, because I, about 5 years ago, I used to work for a youth group in Bristol, which was an LGBT youth group. Sort of 13 to 21-year-olds. And obviously, this is 5 years ago. At the time, it was primarily LGBT, wasn't so much a plus in the title. Yet, ironically, at the time, we had very few lesbian, gay, and bi people there, because they were all identifying as non-binary, pansexual, asexual. There was a lot of the kind of plus identities. And I think in the end, we only had maybe 2 or 3 bisexual people in terms of their self-identification. And they were the slightly older ones.
You genuinely, you almost slipped into a word then that I've never heard on this podcast.
So my question would be, obviously this was a little while ago, I don't know if it's different now, but do you feel that being like, as an identity, is bisexual kind of being maybe eclipsed a bit by the pansexual identity, or is there still quite a few young people identifying as bisexual? Because it seems to be, when we speak about plus identities at Prides, people say about, oh, back in my day it was lesbian, gay, or bi, and it's like, well, it's diversified in terms of but I don't know if does that mean that pansexual is the new bisexual? Is it going to continue to be 2 of them? I don't know. What's your sort of view on that?
Like orange is the new black, eh? Bi means 2. 2, twice. We use the suffix bi all the time, and I think what's happened from that is people have assumed bi meaning 2, meaning that if they are attracted to somebody beyond that 2, then they must be pan. You can coexist as bi and pan together, looking at the different types of attraction. So I think that it's become something that's a lot more prevalent as a self-identification nowadays. But it is still in use. I think it's a time that, I personally didn't discover much about bisexuality until I hit my 30s, which was obviously only last week. But I'm looking for any of you laughing now.
None of us are brave enough, Zayna. We're not going to say a word, right? I promise.
So you have this, Kerry. I can see you. So you have this. Is bisexuality maybe an outdated term? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Do you have kind of labeling theory, which comes in and out of fashion, just like language does? How many new words go into the Oxford English Dictionary every year? And so people have chosen to go, well, it's more than 2, or I'm attracted to more than 2 genders, so that must mean I'm pansexual. And that's why this classification from Bi Pride UK of attraction beyond gender is just that kind of tweak that people might then think, oh, okay, so is it beyond or without? Where do I really fit? And sexuality can be fluid, like you were saying, depending on who you meet. So what you might identify as today, you might not identify as tomorrow.
I like that response.
I absolutely love the comparison, and I mean, Chrissy, you're going to hate this now because stand by your beds because there's going to be a new PowerPoint presentation winging its way to you. I love the comparison about every year there are new words going to the Oxford Dictionary. What a brilliant comparison, because every year there are new identities, sexualities and flags going into our going out there. I think that's brilliant. And you led on really, really nicely onto the attraction element and how people identify. Now, I absolutely love something that I discovered 2 years ago. And again, we'll sit there and we'll read our guide and we absolutely love it. There is a beautiful, beautiful description of individuals who find themselves attracted to two genders, two sexualities, and it's from a Native American expression, I believe, which is called two-spirit. And I think it is absolutely fantastic how that is described. And I know that there are actually, it's starting to be brought more so into the limelight. There are a couple of celebrities that are out there now that choose to identify as with this particular identity as two-spirit. Is there anything within the bi community as far as, is there that crossover? Is there an identification with that particular description, or is it something completely separate on its own?
I guess I would say that identifying spirit or any kind of it's a pan-Indian umbrella term for gender. I think that it's very trendy for celebrities to come out and go, I am this. I identify it as this. And that's great as long as they're being authentic to self.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to kind of work whether that's the case all the time. With something like Two-Spirit, I think we need to be very careful of appropriation.
Okay, yeah.
As opposed to appreciation. You know, we're getting into kind of hurtling towards Halloween, aren't we? And you know, just kind of and just kind of being aware that some of the things that we might maybe represent ourselves as might be culturally appropriating. There is another tribe that, you know, there's so many amazing. I did some writing once about a matrilineal tribe, which is fantastic, and you know, and they're on an island, and it may come back to me at some point. It may not. I'm old. I don't remember everything I always say. But there is the diversity out there. The more, you know, the world is smaller. We know much more about each other, and particularly right now, you know, we have more opportunities to touch base with people thousands of miles away than we ever have done before. But I think some terms I think we need to be careful around the usage of.
Thank you so much. I know I kind of threw a bit of a curveball in there as well, but I really do think it is important to have this conversation. I think there will be people out there that may have heard this previously and kind of almost, oh, hang on a second, that kind of falls under that, so I'm just going to pop that in that box and that's it, and not really understand not the technicalities behind it, but essentially how it all intertwines into itself. I know that we had a question, didn't we?
We did. Unfortunately, I can't scroll back up to get to it, but I did read it beforehand. I believe it was Kevin, so apologies if I get this wrong. Kevin was asking a question to Zayna about the legal side of things regarding marriage between bisexual people, and whether or not there will be any improvements to this. I'm not aware what is there differences between.
It's certainly not my expertise. I mean, I know that I'm going to kind of very quickly kind of throw this in because it's kind of personal to myself and Tom. We have got ACE awareness week come up as well. But I do know that although we're a married couple and we identify as homo-romantic asexuals, the fact that we don't have sex, believe it or not, is still grounds that one or other of us could just get divorced because we haven't consummated the marriage, which is just what? And that's what I'm going to say to that. So that's kind of my take on personal to us. But from your angle, Zayna.
Yeah, so the legality about being bisexual and married, there aren't any. I suppose we could then look at if you get married and your partner then identifies as ace, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could then look. You couldn't go and get married to somebody else because that would be bigamy. But what you can do is look at what I call relationship diversities. So you could look at polyamory, consensual non-monogamy. They're not legally binding, so you don't get the same legal protection, although there is a couple of places in the States where if you are a significant other, and that doesn't necessarily mean the person's legally married, but just a significant other, then you can have some legal rights. You can absolutely, anybody can get divorced on the grounds of irreconcilable differences or not consummating the marriage, and that's up to having some therapy before you get married, really, and sorting those things out, because quite often if you go to seek a therapist 3 or 4 years down the line, it's sometimes too late then. And marriage is a huge thing. Nobody gets that. I've been divorced twice. Nobody gets married to get divorced. Costs too much to start with. Well, let's face it, the divorces always cost more than the weddings. But legally, there's nothing stopping you from getting married as somebody who identifies as bi+. Yes, there might be unique things within your relationship where you have to look at CNM or things like that to help that relationship to thrive and to continue.
Excellent. Yes. I mean, I don't think we're never going to get to that stage. I mean, the only rocky period is if we attempt to share a dessert. I mean, we've genuinely had a conversation with a waiter who has said, "Oh, we'll go for the sharing dessert." He said, "Would you like me to bring 2 spoons?" I said, "No, we'd like you to." That's it. And that's how it's left. So that's about as rocky as our relationship will ever get, really, isn't it? So, it's done quite well.
We've got some comments in the chat.
We do.
Jackson. Yeah. Jackson saying their partner is biromantic and they are pansexual. That's excellent, pansexual. Mm-hmm. Just what we're more comfortable with. I've never identified as bi because it never resonated with me, which is fine. Mm-hmm. Jackson also says, I've heard so many people in the LGBT plus community argue about bi versus pan. People saying one erases the other, or that either are trans, non-binary, phobic. We need to stop arguing amongst ourselves, and we get enough hate. We don't need this from our own community.
Absolutely.
And Kevin says, thank you for the answering the question. I hope I got that right, Kevin. I only read it quickly, and then hopefully we go to see it properly. And then, did you see that Kerry said there was a
comment? Yeah, Resident Pride. Kerry, can you chuck it out to us? We can't see it, sweet.
A moment. Let me see how the internet works.
If it was yourself that got it. Do bear with us a second, listeners. We know that there was a red comment out.
I've got it.
Feel free to chuck it back up. You've got it? Brilliant. Chrissy, throw it out at us.
So the comment is, my non-binary child wants to know what sexuality they come under. Can you be non-binary and gay/straight? They feel bi at the moment, but still very young, so not defiant.
Oh, what a wonderful question.
Yeah, so I would say look at those different types of attraction, and they are sexual, romantic, sensual, or physical, whichever you want to say, emotional and aesthetic. So it has that offshoot, and it also has the other offshoots from every sexuality orientation and every gender identification will have those different types. And it's about when somebody is young, you are still learning about yourself, about how you fit into the world and how it reacts back to you. So, you know, education, awareness, honesty, transparency, the best thing you can do for your child. I've got 5 children myself and a grandchild, is to give them all the answers that they ask for at that time, because they are old enough to consume them.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I know that it's something that we spoke about when we were on another panel as well, actually. Now, I cannot possibly reiterate that enough, but if it's a point where the young person is actually asking about this because there is a want and need to understand it, then we shouldn't shy away from providing those answers, because clearly that will only send them down a completely different, and actually they'll end up trying to find it out from another source that may not necessarily be as wholesome and as savoury as from their own parent or guardian or carer. Are you going for? I thought you were going to go for one of our mini guides. Then I thought just for a second. Oh, we'll plug that in there. Thank you so much, Zayna, for just being absolutely amazing. It's always an absolute pleasure when we have you on, and we absolutely adore it when we come to.
Also
Oxford.
Say as well, I mean, is there no end to your talents? I feel like we talk about so many subjects, and you're an expert on all of them. It's amazing.
You must have the best email signature ever.
I'm no good at reality shows, really, in quizzes. So.
Oh, we've been approached to go on lots of them because we're the weird people. So yeah, don't worry, we're ticking all those boxes. We really are. It's been wonderful what we've been asked to go on, but we've said no. Brilliant. Well, I'm hoping that as far as the absolutely superb points and the questions that were put to Zayna and all the wonderful things that came out of that have actually covered off a lot of the questions that we had asked. Can I throw it out to the team in case Chrissy, Kerry, Tom, have you got any other questions at all that maybe haven't been covered at all, or anything else in any of the chat rooms or anything that's come through? I don't think we've had any emails. I'm just going to do a quick click and check. You lot.
Lucky has joined us.
Fantastic. Hi, Lucky. I've got nothing in the email, so I had no emails come through. Any other questions from the chat room or the team?
No other questions on YouTube. Just a hello from, and I'm going to apologise now if I pronounce this wrong, Adamo Spelletti.
I can't even see if you've got even close, but it sounds fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Wonderful. Excellent. So thank you so much, Ed. Again, are there any resources that any of our listeners can plug into, or is there anywhere that they can go for more information as far as Bi Visibility Day and Bi Awareness Week? And we've already mentioned about Bi Pride. I know they've got a fantastic Facebook page and their website as well, but is there anywhere else that we can kind of direct people to if they've got any other questions or want to know more?
So Bi Day of Visibility actually have their own Facebook and website, and obviously Bi Pride UK has their own website. There's resources like This Is Biscuit. There are lots of information out there about this, and you know, if you are, I guess I would say, just quickly going back to the kind of marriage relationship type question, is look at love languages. If you're finding that you're mismatched, commonly there's 5 of them. So it's physical touch, quality time, words of affirmation, receiving gifts, and acts of service are the main 5 ones. There's another 2 that I add on to that for relationships that have some mismatching in them, either by kind of socio-economic or race and ethnicity mismatching, and they are acts of solidarity and belief. So standing up for your spouse, having their back, making the tea, however you want to put it, and acts of emotional labour. You know, go and look at those if you're having trouble in your relationship. If things have changed for you, which it does over time, people discover stuff and obviously find terminologies that suit them. You know, go and do some reading about it. Whether that's there's a thing called the Jealousy Workbook. There's lots of, and of course, if you want to find out about CNM, you can start listening to my new podcast, which will be coming out next month, called Beyond Monogamy.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you so much. So thank you again to everyone that's been amazing to put today's show together. And again, apologies that we were slightly later running than planned. But there we go. We're going to finish off today's show with a couple of Did You Knows. Those of you that have watched us for years and years and years and years and years, it seems like that, but it's only been weeks. We'll probably know this anyway. So we not only run social events, but we also attend a number of prides across the UK previously. And we facilitated training events with a number of blue chip and global corporate organisations to present to them what they need to know about LGBT+ and how to be more inclusive. We also do work very closely with Shout Out LGBT+ Radio with our monthly podcast Under The Brolly, which is the one that we can pre-record and make all the mistakes on, and we can cut those out, whereas you get the complete live stuff here, which is great as well. We also have our online Etsy store where you can pick up fantastic little bits of merchandise that are painfully handmade by our volunteers, along with our mini guide to LGBT+, and also the full comprehensive 30-page, 317+ flags, plus our genderbread person, all inclusive. I know that Zayna and the guys at Oxford are absolutely loving that. They're all over that, which is absolutely, it really does. It means so much to us. Last year, we supported 21 prides across the UK. We travelled over 4,000 miles by road and 1,000 miles by rail. And that itself is the reason why we do what we do. And this is the reason why we want to do what we do even more so, by getting out into your homes and delivering this podcast to you, so that you still know that we are there to support you, along with all of the other fantastic organisations across the UK, including all the different Pride events, all the different equality, diversity organisations out there that are there to help you. Know that you can go onto the wonderful World Wide Web and ask for help, and there is someone there. Never ever feel as though you're on your own when it comes to what we're going through at the moment, and certainly as far as self-identification, do not feel isolated, do not feel that you're on your own at all. We are here to help, and there are people out there for you. So please, please, please do remember that. Don't forget, you can also still get in touch with us as well after today's podcast. And you can also watch this podcast back on Facebook and on YouTube. You can drop us an email to info@myumbrella.org.uk. You can tweet us at MyUmbrella UK. You can find us on Instagram and all the other wonderfully popular social media platforms if you do want to know more about it as well. Thank you again to Zayna for just being fantastic as always. We love having you on the show, and we have missed you like crazy. We were reminiscing a few weeks back about Oxford Pride and what a fantastic time we had there last year, and we really have missed it this year. We are so looking forward to coming to see you again. We really, really are. And you did weeks ago as well, which was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So thank you again for all the work you've been doing. We will see everybody out there in the wonderful world of the web in 2 weeks' time for another Under the Brolly Live. Until then, we will see you very, very soon. Have a wonderful and fantastic end of the month. Keep safe, and we'll see you soon. Do take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, sexual. Bye.